that's an important thing to say at this stage. Obviously, this evening, members have seen a webcast with regards to the devolution that comes from the government's paper, levelling up paper, which enables upper tier authorities to apply to the government for devolved powers at different levels. Obviously, that doesn't involve local government reform. I think we have to be very clear at this stage that devolution is not about local government reform. So I expressed that very, very clearly this evening. What it does do, it enables us to try and grab this opportunity with both hands and deliver something good for Greater Essex. And of course, one of the most important things I think for Epping Forest is that we're at the table being part of the shaping of the future of our district and our county. There is also the opportunity to work very closely with council colleagues from the north, Uttlesford, Harlow, our usual partners, Colchester, Chelmsford. So there are opportunities there. And we've had a number of meetings with colleagues, Essex leaders and chief executives. And I'm pleased to say that our chief executive has been actively engaged, including a visit to Parliament for a panel up there on levelling up. So I think that's all good news that we're there, we're talking, we're part of the future. So I'm really pleased that we're doing that as Epping Forest. But what I've popped before you this evening is everything that I know and everything that's come out from the meeting with Essex leaders. And I think that's really important, that you're fully aware of how things are shaping and moving forward. And I will keep you posted at every stage. There are another 2 opportunities to see the webcast that we're showing this evening as we go through December, and there'll be much more happening in the new year. But I think this is the right way forward. I think there's opportunities here for us, particularly at a time when those who are at Cabinet this evening would have seen how difficult our finances are. We do need to be looking at new partnership working in order to take this council forward into the future and make it financially sustainable. So I look forward to coming back to you with more updates very, very soon. Chairman, I don't think I've got anything more to add this evening, and I know it's a packed agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Oh, one final thing. Obviously, there has been some good news around Chigwell Primary School, and Eleanor was speaking to me on Saturday evening at another event, and really proud that Chigwell has managed to secure that and move forward. So that's good news for the district and Chigwell.
And other Cabinet members? Councillor Whitbread, did you wish to add another couple of bits?
Thank you, Chairman. I was too keen to stop, wasn't I, this evening? That's because I was realising the tight time constraints. First of all, as you welcomed earlier on Councillor Parsons to the District Council, I'm pleased to confirm that we wish to appoint Councillor Parsons to Plans West, which I believe has to be noted this evening by members. I also want to note that Councillor Rackham is no longer part of the Conservative group, and I propose that Councillor Rackham's place on the Constitution Working Group will be Councillor Sam Kay.
Thank you. We don't need to agree with that. That's just reporting, isn't it? Yeah, thank you. And now, other Cabinet members who wish to add something to the report. I appreciate the fact that we are a week away from when they were expecting to be giving these reports, so there probably are some updates. So, Councillor Holly Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman, and not too much to add on mine, but just to note to all members who, and hopefully you've read my report, but we have a new interim housing director called Pam Wolf. She's here for, as the name would suggest, an interim period, but really kind of steadying the ship while we look to recruit that position more permanently. I'd just like to put on record my thanks to Deborah Fenton, who I think really brought forward particularly the council house building agenda and the more than bricks and mortar work, which is really important, particularly in terms of not only regeneration, but making sure that our council estates and properties are up to the top possible standard. I would just like to highlight, in light of the very cold weather we've had over the past week. Obviously, it's a bit warmer now. The work the council are doing around warm places, working really closely in partnership with Voluntary Action Epping Forest, but it's also really good to see a number of churches and voluntary actions opening up warm spaces across the district. The web page is regularly updated with the different warm places available, and they're very different in each location. So, for example, we have one at the District Council, which offers cups of tea and a biscuit throughout the day for people to come in. But, for example, Essex Library have one open throughout the day, which provide activity as well. And obviously that's one reaction to the cost of living crisis, particularly and the energy costs at present. Just to make members aware that last week with the cold weather, we had a severe weather emergency protocol in place for homeless rough sleepers, to ensure that no one was sleeping rough at this very cold time. And we have seen a slight spike in homelessness in recent months, obviously with the financial difficulties that many are experiencing at present. We have taken various steps with Norway House at capacity, so with some block booking of hotels, but obviously our first port of call is always prevention and trying to stop people needing that support. And on Norway House, we had an excellent Christmas party hosted last week by the team there, so a big thank you. And just lastly, just to a piece of good news to congratulate Diane Butler, who many of you all know from the Youth Council, who was recognised for her brilliant hard work over many years, going back to when myself and Councillor MacGyver were youth councillors on the Youth Council, and she was recognised by Jack Petchy for that work. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Councillor Lyon.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a couple of points to add to my report. One of them is we've been testing a new web assistant, what is known as a chatbot, and this has been very favourably received on the waste management page. So things have actually improved, and we've actually seen a reduction of direct contact by 11% in the sort of first couple of weeks that the service has been on board. And the general reaction from members of the public is well accepted. So that's a really good piece of news. The second point was that we did meet up with town and parish councils at the local liaison committee, and customer services have now put in a new process for town and parish councils to work with the district council. And there's a direct contact now being set up by customer service to ensure that that is being managed properly into the district council in the right way. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Councillor Sam Kane.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to take the opportunity to let members know that following the royal assent of the Elections Bill, so the Elections Act now as it is, which will make some quite dramatic changes to the processes in and around elections for the forthcoming May 2023 elections. So there will be a briefing held on Tuesday, 10th of January at 6 p.m. That'll be a virtual session. And Wendy McLeod will run through a short presentation just going through the changes and how they might affect your area and your election. There'll be full details in the members' bulletin. We'll also send out an email to all members, but please do make the efforts and come along. If you do have to miss it, it will be recorded for later viewing. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Phillip.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to, unlike what I've been doing for most of the past few months, bringing bad news, I wanted to bring some good news. I'm pleased to announce that the Council has been awarded £1 million from the Government as part of the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. That's to be spent over the next 3 years. It's phased, the smallest amount in year 1, the largest amount in year 3. We are struggling a little bit because this was supposed to be announced back at the end of September, and it has to be, the first year has to be spent before the end of March. So we are pushing at that one. It is very positive because we actually got a full approval for all our programme, which reflects the fact that we consulted with a whole number of people, including local MPs, voluntary organisations, parish and town councils, etc. But we've got approval, whereas a lot of other ones do not. They're still nickelling and diming over what's actually allowed to be involved. So it's good news. One of the good things as far as where my other hat is concerned is that the Shared Prosperity Fund actually allows us to levy an admin charge for the projects as we go through. So we're actually able to administer the project successfully. Sorry to say we haven't heard anything yet about the Rural Prosperity Fund, and there seems to be a distinct lack of information about that. But if we did put in a bid, if we do get any results from that, I will let you know.
Thank you. Councillor Bedford.
Thank you, Chairman and members. A couple of points I want to bring to your attention. Obviously, the local plan main modifications finished at last Friday, or Friday the 9th at 5 p.m. I wish to pass on my thanks to the back office team, Vicky Willis and her colleagues, who have uploaded all the information to the website and sent stuff through to the inspector, which also includes the summary of representations. The way forward now is obviously we will hope for an early response from the inspector in the new year, as he's got plenty of time to sit over Christmas dinner and look at our local plan. Hopefully that's the end of the local plan, or coming to its final conclusion. One final point I want to bring to members today is that 2 residents from the Loughton area contacted the Office for Environmental Protection, lodged a complaint against Epping Forest District Council, stating that we were alleging a potential failure to comply with environmental law. The complaint alleges that Epping Forest District Council was failing to comply with the legal obligations by approving planning applications for developments that may cause harm to the Epping Forest Special Area Conservation. The report from the governing body now states quite clearly they've carried out a full assessment of the complaint to consider whether they would take it any further, including commencing an investigation in relation to it. They had to assess the complaint, and if the alleged failure did occur, it would be a serious failure. Moving on from that, in this case, they have determined that Epping Forest District Council did not fail to comply with the environmental law, or did not fail to comply with it, and having acted with its legal discretion when making judgments about harm and certainty to be attached to the mitigation measures affecting the Epping Forest Special Area Conservation. They've notified the complainants of their decision, have closed the complaint. I thought that was some good news to bring forward so we can push on. Thank you, members.
Thank you very much. So we now move on to agenda item 10, which is questions by members without notice. Councillor Amos.
Sorry.
Chairman, isn't that so? Okay. Thank you. This is a question I would have addressed to Councillor Avey. I'm not expecting that anybody here tonight would know the answer to this, but I would like to just leave the question here, if I may. I was pleased when I learnt that Thaden Boyce was to be used to trial the new blue wheelie bins in place of the refuse sacks. And I went to sign up only to find that it wasn't the whole of Thaden Boyce, but only selected streets. My question to Councillor Avey would have been, how long will the trial last? What are the criteria for success? And how much will the council gain after having paid out for the cost of the new wheelie bins against the savings on the refuse sacks? Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Very much. And I think, as you yourself indicated, that probably is a question which we won't have anybody here this evening who can answer it in full, but Councillor Chris Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman. No, indeed, we do have someone who can answer the question this evening, or at least part of it, and that's Councillor Phillip, because he's an engaged Thaden Boyce councillor.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Amos. I can also answer, Chairman, because I am part of the trial. I do have a blue-lidded wheelie bin sitting beside my house at the moment. So far, I have to say, it's going quite well. We're, 3/4 of the way into the 2-week period. Actually, more than that, actually. It's due on Thursday, so virtually a full 2 weeks, and I can confirm I haven't yet filled the wheelie bin, and it's got everything in it. As to how long is the trial going to last, well, the documentation that came with my bin says the Waste Department will be coming back with a questionnaire in February or March time frame to feed back. I think it's really very useful that we have this ability. It's going to focus our minds over the Christmas period when, for some reason or other, we seem to have an awful lot of recycling that needs to go into it. I'm not talking about the bottles necessarily, but probably am. In terms of the other aspects, that will not be determined until we've been through the trial. The trial is all there about seeing how it works, seeing what the issues are, seeing, for example, whether on the week after Christmas we can get all the recycling into the bin, or whether you're going to need to have some fallback position for things that won't fit in, like, for example, additional sacks. That's not decided yet. That's why it's a trial. How much? Quite a bit, I hope. Realistically, in terms of the timing of the blue bin trial, when it comes to be rolled out into all the district, is more likely to be part of the overall new leisure contract, which is coming into the stage for negotiation. So in terms of how much it's going to save, that's one of those questions that's a bit like how long's a bit of string. The real thing is, we know that we spend many hundreds of thousands of pounds every year on those clear recycling sacks. And I'm sure I'm not the only one in this chamber who's seen people using those clear recycling stacks for something that is not recycling. Balloons, I won't go on, nativity costumes, etc. But that will save us. One of the issues there, and we do want to make sure that people keep recycling as much as possible, but if you give something to people for free, they think it's got no value. And that, I think, is one of the issues with the recycling sacks. But this is something that I think will be very positive. I'm very sorry, Clive, that you weren't part of the trial, but what we decided to do was to take a section of the round that actually worked successfully.
Thank you very much. Can we just clarify one point? Did you mean the leisure contract or did you mean the waste contract?
I meant the waste contract. I'm not renegotiating the leisure contract at this stage.
Thank you. If I now go to Councillor Matthews.
Thank you, Chairman. My question is for Councillor Bedford. In light of the recent adverse weather conditions we've experienced in the district, I think it's fair to say there was some confusion around the responsibility for clearing of the snow, gritting of the roads and the pavements. Could the portfolio holder of replacing Deputy Leader please offer some reassurance that this issue is being addressed and a more coordinated approach will be ready for the next bout of cold weather? Thank you.
I'm not sure that this is Councillor Bedford, but I will go to Councillor Bedford.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that question, Councillor Matthews. Obviously, Essex County Council run a salt scheme which is available to all town and parish councils, and they can subscribe to the salt scheme. I believe it's free, and it's also part of the local highways panel's responsibilities, so you'd have to go through them. I think this has come at a time now where we need local town and parish councils to do some serious thinking about subscribing to the schemes, because many don't. Obviously, with climate change happening now going forward, we're having very hot summers. It's obvious that we're going to start getting very cold winters again. I think we need to be planning ahead, and I would welcome all town and parish councils to actually get together. They all sit on quite a lot of reserves. It may be they have to buy the salt bins. Let's get these salt bins in place. Do an assessment of your local town and parish area, and then work together. So it's not just seen as, well, the council are responsible for this, highways are responsible for that, and town and parish councils, what are you doing? Actually, we don't do anything at the moment. And I think it's difficult. It's something that needs to be brought forward. And it's also a myth, apparently, that there is no law that stops residents from clearing local pavements and pathways of their own accord if they feel that they wish to do so. Obviously, taking a careful and common sense approach. And I believe that going forward, this is what we should be doing. We're working as a community. We should be supporting each other, and we should be helping out. I mean, we helped out in my local street in North Weald, where 5 or 6 of us were out there actually clearing the snow before the cars and vans drove all over it, so that we actually could get out of our turning. If we hadn't have done that, we'd have been landlocked for the duration of the snow. I hope that's answered the question. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Richard Bassett and then Councillor John Whitehouse. Councillor Bassett.
Thank you, Chairman. This is for the housing portfolio holder. And with the portfolio portfolio holder, join me in congratulating Qualis Maintenance. Have just been shortlist finalists for the National Housing Maintenance Awards for most innovative property services. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Holly Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Bassett. And I would certainly welcome Councillor Bassett, who I know sits on the Qualis board, in congratulating Qualis for their nomination and shortlisted, and best of luck to them. I would say that we've seen some good progress in terms of Qualis's delivery on housing repairs over the past year. We know that there are some challenges and work to do, and I do welcome Councillor Kane's approach via scrutiny. But we have seen some good news stories in terms of savings as well as the efficiency around the service. And I see Councillor Murray's face. But what I would say is that as the cabinet member, from what I see, the performance is as good, if not better. And there's certainly a lot of innovation and working to improve the delivery for our tenants. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor John Whitehouse.
Thanks, Chairman. Yes, it's a question for Councillor Bedford now. I know that this is his area. It used to be the case that the street cleansing workers would be redirected to clear pavement from snow and ice during prolonged periods of icy and cold weather. And it's something that was discussed at some length during the discussions around the Biffa contract, and it certainly has happened in previous years. So I wondered why it didn't happen this year, or to a very limited extent, why the change in policy, and who made that decision.
Thank you. Councillor Bedford, although I'm looking at... No, I think Councillor Chris Whitbread was probably going to take that one.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Chairman, indeed, when I was coming back from London on the Monday morning, Biffa were out actually clearing some of the pathways in the high street. Of course, they can't get everywhere, and as we heard earlier, but in fact, we used all our salt supplies up here as a district council, trying to make sure that where we could, we cleared and made the places safer. But of course, I think we were expecting our next load of salt this week, indeed, or end of last week. So yes, they were, but obviously there's only so many people to go round, and they can't do everything. What we do need to do, and I think what Councillor Bedford actually came up with, is we need that more joined up approach, and that has to be between the towns, the parishes, the district and the county, to actually make sure when this does happen, which it's limited times when it does happen, let's be honest, we are able to deal with it in a more satisfactory way. There was a lot of salt bins empty, dotted around. We need more salt bins out there. There's nothing to stop towns and parishes and investing in infrastructure like that as well. And again, we just need to be much more aware of that in the future. Thank you.
Councillor Risby.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My question is for the place portfolio holder, Councillor Nigel Bedford. So Epping Forest residents, particularly those in the south of our district, in Chigwell, Buckershill and Loughton, are likely to be quite significantly affected by the London Labour Mayor's ULEZ extension scheme. And this will include residents visiting Whipcross Hospital for appointments, seeing loved ones. So does the Cabinet member share my strong opposition to the scheme, and what representations has the Council made? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bedford.
God, it's a busy night tonight. Thank you very much, Councillor Rizzi, for that question. Obviously, the Labour Mayor is planning to extend the ULEZ scheme in London right out up to our borders. There's nothing that we can do to stop him. We actually did lodge a complaint and we're objection to him extending that right out. I don't think he realises the damage that he's actually going to be doing to us and to himself. We've already seen drop-off in people going into London, number of vehicle movements to London. It looks more like a money-generating exercise on the part of the Mayor. Not happy with it at all. And with regards to Epping Forest District Council, you know that we are obviously having to consider something to do with our clean air zone, but that has not been decided whether that will go ahead. It's all down to whether or not when we do the air quality monitoring in the future, If we are needed to bring that in, we would have to bring something in because that's what we're signing up to in the local plan. But it does not necessarily have to mean it's down to all the cars and residents. These schemes can take a number of different looks, effectively. It could be that it's targeted at lorries, it could be buses, it could be vehicles over a certain age, but nothing has been agreed yet on what Epping Forest will do. Obviously, we're seeing the impact that it has on London, and I think we need to bear that in mind as well. We all do want clean air at the end of the day, but I think that through the natural process of innovation and technology, manufacturers are getting there. We're not that far away before the internal combustion engine ceases manufacture. But it doesn't mean to say that the engines that we've got on the roads today will go out of use in the next 15 to 20 years, because they won't. But they will start declining. They get involved in accidents, they break down, engines blow up, that sort of thing. And as they get phased out, new technologies will come on board. I'm not even saying that the new technologies around battery technology is the way forward. Personally, I don't think it is. But new technologies are coming through every day. And that's going to influence the way that we behave and interact with our partners, not only in London, but the surrounding boroughs as well, and towns. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've now got Councillor Janet Whitehouse, then Councillor Brady, Councillor Murray, Councillor Wixley and Councillor Heap. So if I can go to Councillor Janet Whitehouse. Councillor Bedford.
Sorry?
Thank you, Chairman. I'm not sure which portfolio holder my question is to. In the agenda, there's reference to meetings that the Council has with TfL. Many of us have TfL stations in our wards, and it would be really helpful to know who is having these meetings and how often they take place. And if they could be flagged up in the members' bulletin, those of us who have issues from the stations would then be able to flag up the issues that we'd like to be raised. So I don't know if someone could consider that information being put in the bulletin. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Chris Whitbread.
Thanks, Chairman. Everyone's looking around on the cabinet bench saying, not me. If I can say to Councillor Whitehouse, I'll look into it and come back to you. I should imagine it's Councillor Avey, because obviously it falls within that remit, but I'll make some inquiries and come back to you.
Thank you. Councillor Brady.
Thank you. My question is for Councillor Phillip. Could you please tell us what the Council is doing to encourage people to visit the High Street and supporting local businesses this Christmas?
Thank you. Councillor Phillip.
Thank you, Councillor Brady. Yes, we're actually doing quite a lot. Probably the biggest and most obvious one, which I believe has been covered in national media, is our free car parking in December in our car parks. So much so, in fact, that other councils are being urged to follow our example. It's a significant benefit. I've certainly used the car parks at the weekend in the district several times, and it does seem to be encouraging people to come. The question, I guess, is whether they come, park in there and then jump on the tube, tying the last question, and jump on the tube and head into London or not. But as well as that, we have an ongoing social media campaign that's highlighting the benefits of our high streets, showing what the benefits of going and shopping there are. We've got significant presence on the Visit Epping Forest website. We had over 2,000 people on that last week just looking for things within the district. Publicised many Christmas events in the district on that. We're doing some work trying to make sure that the car park in the Epping Forest shopping park is running as efficiently as possible with people in high visibility jackets there, making sure that people can get in and get out. It's all joined together, and obviously I already talked to you earlier about our Shared Prosperity Fund. One of the things in that, we're looking at the footfall in the high streets. That's not fully through yet, but it will kick in as something to help our businesses.
Thank you. Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Chairman. A question I hadn't intended asking, but it was based on a report we had from a Cabinet member. So I don't know whether this is Councillor Holly Whitbread or the Leader of Council, but I'll let them decide. I draw members to my register of interest. Would he agree with me, or would she agree with me, that we need to put on record our thanks to the volunteers of the Epping Forest Food Bank and 3 Food for You Hub, and other volunteers who will be continuing working during their Christmas week to provide food for local families. And would they also agree with me that as we approach the 22nd year of the 21st century, far from it being a badge of honour, it is in fact a badge of shame and indeed a scandal that here in Epping Forest we have a growing, exponentially growing need for food banks, and we now need a network of warm places. Amen to all the people who are doing it, but it is a scandal. Would she agree that it's an absolute scandal that in the 22nd year of the 21st century we have a growing need to put food on the table and keep our residents warm? Outrageous.
Thank you. Councillor Chris Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll speak first, and then I know Councillor Holly Whitbread is busting to say something as well. First of all, let's pay tribute to all those people who work tirelessly and selflessly for the benefit of our communities across Epping Forest. I think that should be recorded this evening, whether it be for food banks, whether it be in the warm hubs, or doing other vital work across our district. The volunteers that kept us ticking during the pandemic have done likewise ever since, and continue to do so. I have my views on food banks and giving support to those who are vulnerable within our communities. What I would say to Councillor Murray is, when I was growing up, there wasn't food banks as there are today, although they've been a phenomenon across the world for many, many years. In fact, I've visited them in several countries as well. So they have existed across the world in different guises. What I would say, when I was growing up, there wasn't food banks, and people still suffered, but they suffered quietly, which was terrible. I know from my own household where I grew up, in a council house, with parents. My dad was a builder, and there would be times in the winter when there wasn't work, and my mum had 2 or 3 jobs, and food on the table was more limited, but there was no support back then. So actually, I don't like the idea of there having to be food banks or having to have warm areas, but I'd rather that than people suffer in silence, which is what Councillor Murray is suggesting. You will never live in a perfect world. We have to work hard to make the world better. Councillor Holly Whitbread.
Councillor Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman, and I don't think there's too much I can add there, but to agree with the sentiments, to thank volunteers across our district who work hard to support other people in our food banks. It goes without saying we don't want to see anyone in a food bank, but actually, as a council, we're also here to help people, and we work with our voluntary partners to provide that support. What I would highlight about the energy costs is we're in a completely unprecedented situation where people are struggling more than ever before to keep their homes warm because of an illegal war in Ukraine by Vladimir Putin. And I don't think a year ago any of us saw that coming. So I won't take lectures from Councillor Murray that we're working to help people keep warm this winter when energy prices have risen beyond all belief. And actually, I would also welcome what the government have done to provide support for people and keep energy bills down this winter. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Wixley.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I think my question is probably to Councillor John Phillip, the Finance Portfolio Holder, and it's regarding the council-owned property of 200 The High Street, Loughton, otherwise known as Centric Parade. When the snow came last week, I was walking through Loughton High Road, and there were a group of youngsters on top of the roof of Centric Parade, and I guess there were about 15 of them, boys and girls, and they seemed to think it was quite a good idea to throw snowballs down onto the passers-by on the street. I'm sure they thought it was great fun, but it's not so much fun if you're on the end of a snowball. So I just wondered if he could use his influence to make sure that he's prevent unauthorised access to the roof of that building. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Phillip.
Thank you, Councillor Wixley. If you could provide me with the number of the police report when you reported it to the police, that would help significantly to take that through. I'll take that afterwards, obviously. Clearly, as the landlord, we controls some things. The actual shop owners, leasees, have a responsibility as well. Throwing snowballs from on a roof, very bad idea. Would certainly recommend against it. And certainly we've seen a number of incidents of antisocial behaviour in the district over the past couple of months, particularly around actually Halloween and Guy Fawkes night. There was a lot of bad behaviour, not located in particular areas, but also in Thaden Boyce, in Epping, in Loughton, in Chigwell. So that is an ongoing thing. In terms of something like that, the only answer is to involve the authorities to stop something like that happening. We will, if we get a response from any tenants, or of course gets a response from any tenants complaining about access to places that shouldn't be, then that will be looked at in the normal way.
Thank you. We don't usually do supplementaries on questions without notice, sorry. Councillor Heap.
Thank you, Chairman. It's for the leader, possibly Councillor Phillip, because he threw his hat in the ring at audit and governance. And I was looking at the customer complaints policy, and it says at one point, we understand you will be unhappy if we have not carried out an action in a timely manner. So, if a resident contacts the council requesting information to which they're entitled, not agreeing with an answer to a question, how many times are they allowed to email the council or contact the council before being labelled as vexatious?
Councillor Phillip.
I would hate to give an absolute number because I've seen cases where numbers have been abused. In cases where people take the same questions again and again in spite of being given an answer, then there is a robust policy before and process to go through before a complainant is labelled vexatious. In general, the drive is to make sure as far as possible that people are given an opportunity to moderate their behaviour before they step over the line. Once somebody has stepped over the line and become a vexatious complainant, it's the correct thing for everybody involved in the council side to cut that down to only the designated contact, which is usually the monitoring officer, sometimes the chief executive. And if there's a particular case, that's the way it should be handled. And I suspect I know the case that Councillor Heap is referring to, and that case has been labelled vexatious and will continue to be so until we get a change from our monitoring officer changing that status, and I won't go any further on that because I don't want to go into individual cases.
Thank you. I don't see any other indications of questions, so if we can now move on to what is item 14 on your agenda, so you'll find it on pages 73 to 100, which is the independent member remuneration panel's member allowance scheme. And if I can ask Mr. Lai to present this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm going to assume that members have read the report, so they will have quickly seen that the recommendation this year is no change, which is the same recommendation we've had for a few years now, I have to say. But I would like to take this opportunity to, at the risk of sounding like a record that keeps repeating itself, just draw members' attention to a couple of sentences within the report. In paragraph 9, we note that the council is currently the lowest of the comparator authorities and the second lowest in Essex in terms of basic allowance. I did talk about this a little bit last year, that you were falling down the pecking order, as it were. So the committee this year, and it's noted in paragraph 11, expressed even more concern that the work undertaken by members of this council could be perceived as being of lower value than that work undertaken by members of other councils. And I'm sure that's not actually the case, but there is a danger of that perception. You've fallen right down to the bottom. We feel that will need to be addressed at some stage in the future. As it happens, there may be an opportunity coming because we're aware there's an electoral review being undertaken at the moment, and that might enable us in due course to undertake a full review of the basic allowance again, which may be able to allow us to get onto a more, what I would say is a more even keel. But as ever, these are decisions that you make on your remuneration on our advice.
But the strong message this time is that it's looking as if you've fallen off the ledge almost. So bear that in mind for future years. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Any comments or questions? Councillor Chris Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, can I thank Mr Lyle for his committee's work on preparing this report, and we are listening carefully to what you say, and I appreciate that there's no change recommended this year, and I think that's the right decision to take at this moment in time, particularly after we've received the budget report this evening, the savings we've had to find and the hard decisions that we've had to take. I think it's important that as councillors we show restraint in that way. And what I would say, and to all my colleagues on all sides of this chamber this evening, I appreciate the hard work that every councillor makes on behalf of the residents of Epping Forest. I believe there's an awful lot of work that goes on out there. I think we've seen it during the pandemic, post-pandemic, and into the future. Members are doing more now than they've ever done before. And I think that's a tribute to you all as councillors. And my cabinet colleagues I know have worked extremely hard in recent times. But I do believe, and I think Mr Lye is right, that when we get to the all-out elections in 24, a new council will have to take a proper look at how remuneration is done in the authority. But at this stage, the right thing to do is exactly what's in this report. We do not increase our allowances at this time, not when we're making sacrifices as a council and our residents are having a hard time out there.
Thank you. Councillor Murray.
For brevity, I would agree with everything the leader has said.
Thank you. Anybody else, any comments or questions around this? No? In that case, if I can ask members to approve the recommendations of the Independent Remuneration Panel as set out on page 73 of the agenda. Thank you very much. And thank you, Mr Lye, and your panel for all the work that you have done and have done over the years putting this together. Thank you very much. And now if we go back to item 12 on the agenda, the Corporate Plan 2023-27 on pages 51 to 66. And when I find the right page, if I can go to Councillor Chris Whitbread to present this.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Chairman, I won't keep members too long this evening. I'm sure they've all taken time to read the report and probably have more questions on it than anything else, because it's been through scrutiny, it's been through Cabinet and worked its way through various different guises across the Council. The important thing about this document is the high strategic document that this Council does, and it shapes what we're looking to do in years ahead. So, and particularly it talks about our ambitions for the district. And I think first and foremost what we've done differently here is set out a bit more about the district up front, what Epping Forest is all about. And then it talks about stronger communities and what we mean by that, stronger place and stronger council. So I think it sets out a really good vision for the future, how we work with our partners in the future, and the sort of council that we want to be. But I think first and foremost, Chairman, this evening, it's about whether there's any questions on this, but I say it has been through a full process.
Thank you very much. I should perhaps have said before asking Councillor Whitbread to present it that you did all receive an emailed updated version of the corporate plan as a supplement to this agenda. Having looked at it myself, I found very little change between the two. I think there were just a few sentences that have been taken out, but we are working to the updated supplementary item rather than what you have in your actual agenda. Any questions or comments? I don't see any indications. So in that case, are members happy to agree adoption of the new corporate plan for the period 23-27? Agreed. Thank you very much. And we move on to item 13 on the agenda, which is the consultation response to the Local Government Boundary Commission England Ward Boundary Review. And if I ask Councillor, sorry, Councillor Whitbread, yes, sorry.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to do a quick introduction because actually Councillor Phillip has done all the work on this one for me. Whenever we had meetings, I tended to be clashing with other meetings, so dashing back and forward to different places is never a good way to chair a meeting of such importance. And of course, Councillor Phillip did it with his normal plume. So I shall hand over to Councillor Phillip to go through the report this evening.
Thank you very much. Councillor Phillip.
Thank you, Chairman. This is a report from the Portfolio Holder Advisory Group on the Boundary Commission ward review. As members will remember, we came back to...
Can I just pause you one moment? Sorry, Councillor Phillip. I should perhaps have mentioned that there was also a supplementary background paper which was sent out to all members attached to this, which was comments from Councillor Murray. So I'm just flagging out the fact that that forms part of this as well, this paperwork. Thank you, Councillor Phillip.
Thank you, Chairman. That's extracted a bit from my talk a little bit later on. I was going to make the point that I had committed to Councillor Murray that we would include his comments in the agenda, and it's in there as called out, particularly as a background paper for information for other members. We came to Council back in December last year, where we agreed that we would go forward with electing in thirds. As a result of that, we made no significant contribution to the Boundary Commission before they brought forward their warding proposals. That wasn't due to lack of effort. We had looked distinctly in detail at all the numbers around. It was difficult to find a process that worked particularly well. When we received the proposals from the Boundary Commission, we looked at them, we met as a committee, we discussed through them. We felt that overall the approach was probably about as good as we could get to. There were a number of suggestions made by a number of people across the Portfolio Holder Advisory Group, which we discussed as a Portfolio Holder Advisory Group. It's worth saying that of all of those, there was only one that we as a group actually felt was worth taking forward to the Boundary Commission. For those of you who've looked at the interactive map, you will have seen what is called the Rural East, which is actually up in the north. It's a bit like Plans East and Plans North, but the Rural East, which is a very, very large ward. It's suggested by the Boundary Commission that that should be 3 members occupying a whole area. We felt that the Boundary Commission had failed on its own criteria about communities of interest. We felt very strongly that that was not the best option for the top of the district, so we aimed to make a submission that says that 3-member ward should actually be 3 single-member wards. And if the Boundary Commission is so minded not to do that, then it would still be better to make it a 1-member ward and 1 2-member wards, because that would be better than making one huge one. We looked at issues around Roydon, which we felt was not strong enough for us as a council to make a submission on. We looked at issues around Waltham Abbey, again, which we felt we couldn't support. We spent quite a lot of time talking about Councillor Murray's proposals around the wards at the edge of Loughton and Buckerstill. Again, we felt those arguments were not strong enough compared to the other wards that very similar things could be said about it. As a result, our submission suggested to the Boundary Commission is that we will agree with what they've said, with the exception of the Rural East, which we believe should be 3 1-member wards. We've set out a way to construct them. We've pointed out that at least one of them doesn't meet their percentage guidelines, but then the Rural East doesn't meet their percentage guidelines either. So they'll hoist whichever way they go on that one. Members, I'm happy to take questions on this, but this is our proposed recommendation. One thing I would add is the Boundary Commission had extended the consultation to last Wednesday to allow submissions. As you will have noticed, we had to cancel council last Tuesday, bring it forward this week. They have closed the consultation, but they have said that they're willing to take our submission late because they're aware of the fact that the adverse weather affected our ability to decide this as a council. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, any members, any questions or comments? Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Chairman. it's a phrase I have to use an awful lot of times in this chamber. You've got a very unhappy Councillor Murray here. And it's for a number of reasons. When we made the decision to keep with thirds, which in isolation, taken in isolation, I support over all-out elections, we were given a strong indication by the leader that the Boundary Commission would still be open to one-member wards or two-member wards where there was a strong community of interest. I want to resist the temptation that I could have told you so, but I could have told you so. The only reason why I didn't at the council meeting was it was very clear that the chairman, and I'm not blaming her because I took the decision, we needed a quick meeting, so I chose not to speak. But I was one of only 2 or 3 members that voted against the proposal of going in thirds, because I knew that this is exactly what we would end up with. And I don't know whether all members have actually read the Boundary Commission proposals, but they've essentially chopped the district into 18 parts with 3 members and have taken very little account of community of interest. I'm a great believer, Chairman, that district wards should reflect strong communities. It's not possible with county divisions. Most people I know haven't got a clue which county division they live in. But the majority of people I know have a very strong identity with their district ward, and that's the way it should be. It is quite possible to draw district council wards that reflect genuinely strong community of interests. And the only reason that the working group weren't able to accept my comments, and actually I'm not trying to big myself up, but I wouldn't say they were comments, I would say they were closely argued submission based on facts, not opinion. So they weren't just kind of comments, they were closely argued submission based on empirical evidence, or that could have been said for other parts of the district. Well, my answer, and don't please take it as a criticism, just take it as an observation, well, why wasn't it being said about other parts? Because if I was a member for Abridge, I would have been saying it about Abridge, a really distinct community that has the right at district level to be represented as that community. I don't want to go around other parts of the district where I feel as strongly, but I'm not in a position. Well, I will mention one more, Thaden Boyce. Don't want to upset the 2 councillors, but I wouldn't want to live there. But it's a distinct, clear community and deserves to be represented by district councillors that has a clear community of interest. So it's a general principle that I feel absolutely passionate about. So I took the time to provide this submission. Well, the Boundary Commission are going to get it anyway because they've had it as soon as I wrote it and the Town Council has sent it in. So I'm not going to actually put anything to the vote tonight, but I think it's an important principle we're expounding. So we made the mistake by putting thirds over community wards. We've got the Boundary Commission proposals that anyone could have told you we are going to get. I can't find any of those. Well, Buckhurst West, I suppose, because it stays as a 3-member ward, and it's the ward that we've already got. But none of them really have a strong community of interest. And then my submission shows very, very clearly, because I have to talk about the ward I know best, why it doesn't work. And this is nothing about IG9, and I've had a really good conversation with one of the representatives from Buckhurst Hill East. Buckhurst Hill East and Whitebridge doesn't have a strong community of interest. If people have found time to read my background paper, and I thank Councillor Phillip and the working group for allowing that to be part of the agenda. The shopping centres, the shopping areas are different. The doctors' surgeries, the libraries, the places of faith, the secondary schools, the recreational facilities. Of course, there's some overlap, no doubt about that, but all the key components that create and develop community are different. And the Boundary Commission should have recognised that, and hopefully they will, but they won't. We're going to end up, members, with these 18 anomalous wards, some worse than others, that people won't identify with. And this idea that they were ever going to give us one-member wards or two-member wards that the leader kind of made great play on, because I remember, and in fact I've looked at the webcast, was never going to happen, and we are where we are, and I've said what I needed to say.
Thank you. Councillor Chris Whitbread.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. It obviously is getting to pantomime season because it's oh no they aren't. Oh yes they are. It was very, very clear at the time when we discussed three-seater wards that I said that you'd have to make a very strong argument for a one-seater or a two-seater if that was to be considered. What I think we have here this evening from the Boundary Commission is a fair reflection of our district with some very difficult decisions. That seems to be a common theme. When you look to the rural north of its geographical spread, the arguments that have been made by the working group are very strong and practical. When you come south into the more urban areas, of course you're going to get some divide over communities. In fact, it's really good that the Commission has managed to avoid doing that in some areas. But even my own ward of Epping Lindsay is now joined in with Epping Upland. So we cross the rural and the urban. We have different communities that look different, sound different, but they can work together. In fact, Epping Upland was originally part of Epping Lindsay ward. So things seem to go around full circle. What we have here is one councillor doesn't like the makeup of a ward that crosses into two parishes, but we've got that in numerous other occasions across the plan. It's almost creating a ward for no purpose. So a three-seater ward, as it's currently set out here, is a fully sensible idea. It's an urban seat. Yes, there are differences, but there's differences in shopping hatches across the district. You could argue some of the small hatches dotted around Waltham Abbey are different to Sun Street. Well, of course they are. Roydon has differences with Nasing. Of course they do. That doesn't make them incapable of being served by three councillors. That's just part and parcel. What this is probably more driven by the politics of Loughton and wanting to be separate from Buckerstill East than actually making any sensible argument around an urban seat. Yes, there are differences in the communities, but actually that should be embraced and used properly. And a three-seater ward will actually give good coverage to that area from a democratic point of view. And I support what the actual Commission has put forward in that case. The only concern I have with what the Commission has put forward is in the north of the district. And certainly I will be supporting the recommendations this evening and certainly not supporting a one-seat Murray ward in Loughton.
Thank you. Councillor Kaufman.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm a tad out of my depth on this one. We have an outstanding councillor in Councillor Murray. I absolutely appreciate what he's saying and the depth of work and research paper that he's put together to demonstrate his case. And there are political differences, and there are differences between Buckhurst Hill East and Loughton, and long may that continue, because you may be one of the 11,000 in Buckhurst Hill and one of the 30,000 in Loughton. But they are different, and Councillor Murray feels very strongly about it. I'm not expecting any of my words to fall or be taken particularly well, but I do believe if the webcast is working, or if there's a recording of it, that there is a person somewhere at the Boundary Review who will witness this meeting, and I'm standing up to say I agree with what Councillor Murray has said. I think it's wrong, and I would like that to be an exception. Not expecting it to be here, but if I don't speak, whoever that person is, they won't know what I think. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Councillor Phillip.
Thank you, Chairman. I did feel I have to respond to the last couple of comments. I don't deny, don't get me wrong, I'm not denying there are differences between Buckersdale and Loughton. What we're saying here is that the differences between those two parts of the proposed ward are not significantly different from the differences elsewhere. Councillor Murray fortunately referenced Thaden Boyce and Passingford as one of the wards. Now, I hope that Thaden Boyce and Passingford will still be represented by strong councillors who have an association. I know my colleague, Councillor Brady, already has significant numbers of community interest. Is it 6 parish councils, Heather? 6 parish councils she has within Passingford. So we already have wards that cover significant communities of interest. I noticed in Councillor Murray's submission, he was talking about going to different libraries. Well, within Thaden Boyce alone, I know that there's generally a bifurcation somewhere around Coppice Row, that the ones on this side of Coppice Row head to Epping Library and the ones on that side head to Loughton Library. If I look at the boundary of Thaden Boyce and the Loughton wards, sitting illogically to me just to the Thaden Boyce side of Ritley Grange, but they are different postcodes, but that doesn't make it a good argument for separating them. Looking at the Abridge and Chigwell ward, for example, there are significant differences and there are significant similarities between the argument that Councillor Murray is making between in his ward and that one. If we went down that route, the likelihood is that we would start going forward and say, we want our wards to look exactly like they are at the moment, with very few changes. And I think we all know how successful that traction would be with the local government boundary commission, i.e. not at all, because they've decided that they want to change. I still believe that putting forward a strong argument around particular areas, and the rural east is the one, I think, is the strongest argument that we have to say that is not a good representation for our people. I don't run down what Councillor Murray is saying at all. I do recognise there are differences. What I'm saying is those differences aren't significantly different to other places in the district. Given that we decided to go for all-out elections, and I don't believe it was a mistake, I think it was completely right to keep electing in thirds and not go all out, we accepted the fact that there would be a majority of 3-member wards. Realistically, even with all-out elections, the Boundary Commission were going to push for the majority of wards to be 3 members. So it's not as if we can keep going with where we are if we didn't go for all-out elections. But we are in thirds, that's where we are. I think our strongest approach is to say the rural east is the one that sticks out like a sore thumb as being a really bad idea. And the other ones, they're not perfect, but given the constraints that we're working on, some of which is projection of what our housing numbers are going to be and therefore what the populations are going to be by 2028, this is the best position that we can be in, and we make a strong case that the right thing for this council is to fix the rural east, and we accept the others.
Councillor Heap and then Councillor Brooks.
Thank you. Given the devolution document that was presented earlier, are we going to be doing this again very, very soon?
Councillor Phillip.
Yes, as the leader made very clear, and I'm sure we'll make clear again when we come to the devolution document, we're talking of devolution at the first tier, which is Essex County Council, Thurrock and Southend, which are the primary tier organisations. We're not looking at local government reorganisation at this stage. Who knows? I mean, when I stood up to present the budget in February this year, so less than 10 months ago, we had no invasion of Ukraine. Who knows what the case is going to be in 5 years' time? This gives us a position with the Local Government Boundary Commission saying the numbers we're working on are the ones to 2028. That's reasonable. Hopefully we'll very soon have a local plan that will take us out to 2033, which is 5 years after that, so 5 years on both sides. 2034, who knows? I mean, who knows if any of us will still be here?
Okay. Councillor Brooks.
Members, you don't often see me standing up at full council. I find it quite hard, actually. I much prefer coming to committees and asking questions in a smaller environment. It's very intimidating for most of us to stand up. But so you can tell that it's something that I feel very passionate about. I've made my comments via Loughton Town Council. I think one of the mistakes that the Boundary Commission have made, and it was a very difficult job, and I know that Councillor Whitbread would have preferred a smaller number of councillors when we've had private discussions over the years. And I think there is a case for that, for bringing it down a bit to even 50. I gave my vote to all out, not thirds. It was about 60-40 in my mind, but in the end I voted for the all-out elections. The one thing I feel they've made a mistake about is, because when you read the document, it says they do respect communities of interest, and that is about the Broadway ward in Loughton, because they have split the street in half. Now, it's very common to have to split a street or road in half, and we've all been on those awkward positions where you've canvassed and you've just gone over the line, or you've made a mistake, you got the number wrong. But there is a strong community of interest in the Broadway ward in Debden, and to have it represented by two different sets of 3 people, I think is a mistake. And I did notice when I read you would expect me to perhaps agree, but often Councillor Murray and I don't agree on things, but we usually have these arguments in private. But I did notice when I read the submissions to the Boundary Commission that Councillor Chambers, who was a member of this council and still is a member of the parish council, did support what Councillor Murray is saying in keeping Loughton and Buckhurst Hill, that little distance, separate. So it's not only members of Loughton residents or Loughton that want to keep Loughton separate from Buckhurst Hill. And I feel that there is a strong community in Buckhurst Hill and in Loughton. We all suffer a little from being very close to London. And that's why, in a way, it's the parish councils have been a great thing for many of us. You know, Waltham Abbey, obviously they have more to do than Loughton, but I do think the parish councils have been a great thing. So I really agree that there is a special case, and there will only be one councillor, and it won't be me, should the Boundary Commission listen to what we think.
Thank you. Councillor John Philip.
Can I start by thanking Rose for Councillor Brooks for taking part in this. I do actually appreciate when people make the effort to stand up and make a contribution. It is very important that we all do take our chances to speak. And I understand the depth of feeling that is motivating her. I would caution against using Councillor Chambers as a touchstone, because he also actually recommended that his street in Buckhurst Hill should be moved into Redbridge and not left in Epping Forest. So let's just not dwell too long on his soundness on that one. I do understand it. I mean, Buckhurst Hill, and Chigwell for that matter, really classic examples there where you've got streets that are not only not in the same ward, but they're not even in the same district, or not even in the same county, and they're slap bang up next to each other. And sometimes it can be really difficult if you don't know the area, walking down and suddenly realising, oh, hang on a second, I'm not canvassing in Redbridge anymore, I'm canvassing in Buckhurst Hill or Chigwell. So there are difficulties, particularly in the urban areas. And I don't disagree that there are differences. As I said to Councillor Kaufman, there are differences between Loughton and Buckhurst Hill. As I say, I will go back and talk about Ripley Grange again, which sits illogically, in my case, I believe, in the Loughton ward, rather than being part of Thaden Boyce, which is where it naturally sits. But I don't think we can nickel and dime on the small ones. It's not the bit that we can really deal with. I actually disagree with you. I think the advantages of electing by thirds outweighs the advantages, because as I said to Councillor Kaufman, yes, it gave the opportunity for not having everything being 3-member wards, but there was still a major push by the Government Boundary Commission to have predominantly 3-member wards. My gut feel is that if that went through, then what we would be seeing would be three-member wards in the urban areas and single-member wards in the rural areas. I know from my point of view that Thaden Boyce and Passingford is a big ward. I'm very happy, will be very happy to have Councillor Brady as my colleague because I know she knows that area well. Provided that we get the right councillors in places like that, I think it will work. The Rural East, as I said, is another matter. But I think this one is not significantly different from other places within the district to make a test case of it.
Thank you. Councillor Allgood.
This too is my first time speaking at a full council, so if I can get some credit for that as well, thank you very much. I'm not going to go into all the arguments because it's been given for and against. I'm sure if we put it to a vote, the Loughton will lose because of the numbers. However, I haven't heard an argument of why we can't just put it forward anyway, even if it's not a strong case. I understand that. There is a strong representation of people here who are very keen it goes forward. Why can't it go forward?
Thank you. Councillor Phillip.
And can I welcome Councillor Allgood, his first contribution to full council. As I say, I'm very happy to have that. What we're doing here is we're talking about the council's response to the Local Government Boundary Commission. What we're looking at here is something that we as a whole council agree. That doesn't stop you, and it doesn't stop the Loughton Residents Association, it doesn't stop the Loughton Town Council from making their own submissions. That's quite permissible. And it has been done. I know as Councillor Murray said, as soon as he wrote his submission, he submitted it to the local... And who knows? I don't know, Stephen. They might listen. They might not. They might listen to us talking about the rural east. They might not. We're making a submission. Why do we choose this one? Because we felt this is the one that had the strongest chance of success and was the biggest failure in terms of what they submitted. So we said the rest of it is livable with. Rural East, we believe, is something as a whole council is so fundamentally flawed that we need to say something about it.
Thank you. Councillor Lyon.
Thank you, Chairman. Just an observation, really. As ward councillor for Grange Hill, we have different communities of interest in Grange Hill. We've got an extensive community within Limes Farm, and then we've got the rest of Grange Hill. That is not a problem. You just have to manage the residents and support them as necessary. So communities of interest don't really have an impact, and I think it's really looking after the residents within each particular ward and each particular part of the district that is important. Where the boundaries fall is perhaps just an arbitrary decision. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Phillip.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Lyon, for that contribution. And I would thank him as being the only councillor from Grange Hill who could be bothered to turn up and talk about this tonight. It is true that within wards the size of a district ward, you will have different constituencies that are separate in many ways. In fact, I think that may well be the case within a number of parish councils as well. You see quite a lot of differences within some of them. I know Councillor Patel used to be on the Buckhurst Hill Parish Council, and you would see that there were significant differences between different parts of Buckhurst Hill. That doesn't mean that there's a case for splitting that up. I think the argument here is that the sheer physical distance in the rural east is the one that makes it strongest for us to say this is not right, but we're willing to live with the rest of them.
Thank you. I don't see anybody else indicating. Sorry, Councillor Pond.
Yeah, very quickly, I just wanted to ask a stand up. The two extra members that you hope to get for Rural East, well, does that mean other areas have been changed?
Yeah. Microphone.
Thank you, Caroline. That's actually a lovely, easy question to answer. The Rural East is proposed in the Local Government Boundary Commission report as being a three-member ward, going basically from the west of our district to the east of the district. What we're proposing is you take that whole space, split it into three roughly equal-sized areas with one member for each of those. So instead of having one ward with 3 members, you've got 3 wards, each with 1 member. No change in the numbers.
see any other indications. So the recommendation is that the Council approves the consultation response as set out in section 3 of this report for submission to the Local Government Boundary Commission. And I think this is probably a vote where we should be having a show of hands. So if I could ask members who are in favour of the recommendation to please show.
(28), Chairman.
Thank you. Those against the recommendation?
(12), Chairman.
And any abstentions?
1, Chairman.
No, two.
Apologies, 2.
Thank you. So on the basis of the vote, the recommendation is approved, and this will now go forward to the Local Government Boundary Commission, and we await their deliberations on the submission. Thank you very much. Moving on now to agenda item 15, which is the Constitution Working Group, and if I could ask Councillor Bannott to present this and the recommendations.
Chairman, thank you very much. This report is brought to you from the Constitution Working Group. Can I just give my thanks in the first instance to the working group, and in particular Councillor Bassett, who has stepped in to support me in this role. The proposal we intend to bring is an amendment to Article 15. For anyone following it in your packs, the Constitution is quite a large document, and I'm not expecting everyone to have read it. But if you go on to page 103, that is the relevant page that we are referring to within a very extensive Constitution. The proposal is that an additional line is added at paragraph 9 to say that the common seal may be in physical or electronic form as determined by the monitoring officer be incorporated into Article 15, finance contracts and legal matters. And that would allow the monitoring officer to be authorised to make the necessary revisions to the Council's constitution in light of if this proposal is passed today. The first, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I just wanted to clarify a few things in case there is any doubts. Firstly, what is a seal? Some people may know, some people may not. It did come up in our working group. It's a device which sets out the company's name. It historically was done in a wax form. There are more modern methods now, sometimes using a rubber stamp. What we propose, we move away from that, or in addition to that, we use a software called DocuSign, which allows for electronic signing of legal documents to bind the council. What are the advantages? Quick three. Number one, it's a practical measure, particularly when there's remote working. Number two, it is showing that we're a council that's progressive and actually looking at our technological function and trying to be, catching up with the 21st century. And I think thirdly, it's very much a practical solution to the signing of legal documents. That's my report, and I'm very happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Any members got any questions on this? In that case, if we can take the recommendations, recommendation 1 and 2, are members happy to agree those recommendations?
Agreed.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Councillor Bennott. And then agenda item 16, the overview and scrutiny progress report for November 22. This is for noting, but Councillor Helen Kane, if you wish to present this report.
Yes, members, there are two different meetings taking place. So in my report, you will find the overview scrutiny of the 3rd of November and the overview scrutiny of the 17th of November. Please, the report is really, I thought, very comprehensive and very easy, but to understand. But if you have any questions, please let me know, and I will answer them. Try to answer them.
Thank you. Right, so members' questions. Councillor Murray?
Thank you, Chairman. It's not a question, it's a couple of comments, because I don't think we should just note the report without bringing out a couple of key issues. Because the 3rd of November, in some ways, was quite historic, Madam Chairman. In my memory, it was one of the very few occasions where ONS scrutinised a Cabinet proposal and decided that they didn't want to endorse it. And I don't know whether that's happened on EFDC before, but certainly not something I can remember. So that's about the transfer of, so I'm talking about the 3rd of November, that was the transfer of grounds maintenance to Qualis, and the ONS felt on the Thursday night, and it was going to Cabinet on the Monday, so it was very immediate. They couldn't support that. And subsequent to that, we had two very different reactions, and I have to congratulate Councillor Phillip on his reaction. He put the case at ONS, he took it on the chin, he went to Cabinet and played it with a very straight bat, and said we'd listen really carefully to ONS, and I acknowledged that, and that was really good. And then Cabinet decided that they wanted to go ahead with the proposal, which is the mechanism absolutely correctly. I wasn't over-enamoured, Chairman, and I have re-watched the webcast. I wasn't over-enamoured with the suggestion by other councillor that ONS on that Thursday night had been misled and told stories, and if they hadn't been told stories, their decision might have been different. I just felt the two reactions were quite different and very interesting. Told me a lot. On the 17th of November, I was really pleased, and I want to acknowledge the role of Councillor Helen Kane in this, in the fact that we have decided that we do want to look at Qualis and their delivery of services. Because I've had one more case very recently, and it might not be the norm, but I'm having too many exceptional cases brought to my attention where there are real issues around Qualis and their delivery of service. Is there anyone sitting here tonight that thinks it's acceptable for a 90-year-old tenant who doesn't have a bath and only has a shower, and it hasn't worked for a month? It shouldn't take me emailing Councillor Holly Whitbread, and I want to acknowledge her quick response, and I want to acknowledge her action, and I want to acknowledge that Qualis did it the next day. But that's not how it should work, Chairman. That's not acceptable. And I don't care if 99 others are being done really, really well, if I'm getting reports of that kind of thing. I never used to get them under the old regime, so I'm really, really pleased, Councillor Kane, that we are looking at that in detail. Thank you, Chairman.
Sorry, Councillor Kane, you wish to come back first, then I'll come to Councillor Holly Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman. Just want to say that upon reflection of that meeting, it was obvious that members have some questions, and that is why I thought that it is better to sort it out. And in January, we will have Sasha, coming and talk to us and explain to us and answer the questions the members have. The other thing I would like to stress through you, Chairman, is that if members would like to attend the overview and scrutiny meeting, because this is the best way of actually understanding how the council really works and what the members are really wanted to say. And it is a very strong council, has a very good cabinet, but has a very good, a very strong scrutiny as well. Thank you.
Councillor Holly Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman, and I won't speak for too long on this matter, but I wasn't actually at the overview and scrutiny meeting where that vote took place. and I'm not sure where the comments about misleading came from. But what I would suggest is that at that overview and scrutiny committee, members didn't perhaps have the full picture, which was they were then furnished with at a later meeting in relation to performance statistics, which I know I shared at Cabinet and I think subsequent overview and scrutiny meetings, and I hope that was helpful. What I would say from my perspective is that I certainly got a similar, if not more, complaints brought to me as the Cabinet member previously, but I do agree with Councillor Murray that clearly that case, which I took up last week, was not acceptable, and I very much welcome overview and scrutiny looking at housing repairs, because I think that's their role and their function, and actually something that I've pushed to happen as well. I would say that Ben Johnson at Qualis has been really impressive in his regular meetings and contact with me, as has Sasha been, and I would like to thank them for their work around that. But I do welcome scrutiny, because we want the service to improve for the sake of our tenants. Thank you.
I think from what I've heard that we've obviously, out of what was discussed through overview and scrutiny, now looking further at the work of Qualis, particularly the housing maintenance area of it. Councillor Phillip, you wish to add something?
Yes, I was just going to come back on what Councillor Murray said, because I did, as he rightly pointed out, listen to the scrutiny panel. I spoke to a number of the members of the scrutiny panel immediately after the meeting as well, and realised there were things not included in the report that I delivered that needed to be included to give a fuller picture, and that's what myself and Councillor Holloway-Whitbread did at Cabinet on the Monday, and that was what allowed us to progress forward and look at taking the decision in the end. It wasn't just an arbitrary, that's what scrutiny have said. We made the effort to address what those concerns were before we brought it forward.
Thank you very much. Have we got anybody else with questions to Councillor Helen Kane on the report? No? Thank you very much. Thank you for that report. Item 17 is joint arrangements with external organisations. We haven't got any attached. We are very conscious again that the only one we hear from is the gunpowder mills. And I am as guilty as everybody else on this, but there is this urging people to consider putting forward reports from external organisations that they sit on. Councillor Helen Kane, though.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you very much. Well, the Royal Gunpowder Mills held its final Sunday of the season for opening to the public on the 30th of October 2022. Overall, it has been a successful season with excellent feedback from those who came to the site, although they could have done with a greater number of visitors. They are still limited in what they can do in terms of what they can offer to visitors by the numbers of volunteers. And they will be having a concerted drive to improve those numbers over the next few months. So please, members, if you know anyone who would like to be a volunteer, please spread the word. One piece of good news, Chairman, is that they have received a substantial grant from the National Heritage Memorial Fund for the repair of their Grade 1 listed building, which had suffered significant deterioration during the period of lockdown, when no maintenance was possible. This necessitated closing that building to the public. It is a building that houses a replica gunpowder mill, various other historic exhibitions, and also teaching facilities for school children. The repair works that are being funded will enable the Royal Gunpowder Mills to bring back into public use this most important of their 20 listed buildings on the site next year. Members, please keep an eye, as there will be a press release about all this as soon as it is approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I don't think anybody else is indicating that they wish to present a report. So I would just conclude the meeting by wishing all members and officers a very happy and good Christmas, peaceful Christmas, and all the very best for we move into 2023. Thank you all very much for your attendance this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.